The right has really tried to lean into the culture war, but they also love embracing the language of freedom. We're in favor of freedom, and the left wants to take your freedoms away. This is the narrative that they've gone with. Now, what they don't realize is oftentimes in these culture war battles, they end up overreaching and they end up advocating for restrictions on freedom. So they end up advocating for authoritarianism. Well, here we have a perfect example of this. Ben Shapiro was doing some sort of live stream. He's answering questions. And look at what his take is on dress codes.
Should wearing dresses and skirts be illegal for men in public? If so, should wearing pants for women be illegal in public? Well, pants not so much, because there is a female version of pants that is nearly indistinguishable in many cases from male pants. But men wearing traditional female clothing in public, I think that there's a case that local communities should be able to stop that. Sure, I mean, we have local laws about being naked or indecent exposure, or at least we used to.
There are no words, right? How immensely arbitrary is it to support laws like that? Look, just to give some examples here, I wear earrings. I have earrings, right? And I had 2 when I was younger. There was a time when I had 4. And, you know, in the further back you go, when you get to like the 1950s, that was not socially acceptable at all for men, at all. It was viewed as super weird and beyond the pale and feminine and all these things. And then, as the years went on, the decades went on, at some point, it became normal for guys to have either an earring or earrings. And these days, nobody bats an eyelash. Nobody even thinks it's like a feminine thing. It's just like, no, yeah, a guy can have an earring or earrings, and that's normal, right? Different grooming procedures, right? Like, there was a time when guys never, touched up their eyebrows, plucked the spare hairs, tweezed the spare hairs that are underneath or whatever. Then at some point, that's nobody bats an eyelash at that. You could have a guy with like very manicured eyebrows and nobody's like, whoa, that's weird. I mean, maybe in some extreme circumstances, if they have like the little razor thin ones, maybe something. But again, that's like, it's whatever. Just doing your hair in a certain way, like a guy with long hair, right? Back in the day, oh, that's taboo. You can't do that. That's very feminine. Now, nobody cares if a guy has long hair. It doesn't even it wouldn't even register as weird. It would just be like, it's fine. It's just a guy with hair, right? Like, who cares? So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, styles change. Fashion changes. Our perception of what's masculine and feminine changes. For example, I remember when I read an article that talked about how high heels were initially viewed as very masculine. Why? Because Ottoman soldiers used to wear high heels to ride their horses when they would go into battle. And so it was viewed as like, oh, high heels, that's a very masculine thing to wear. And then at some point, obviously, it flipped, and now high heels are viewed as very, very feminine. There was a time when blue was the girl color and pink was the boy color. And, now it's viewed as the opposite. There was a time when little boys used to be put into dresses when they were kids. This is, I don't, remember the exact time frame, but maybe like the 1900s. That was sort of standard operating procedure. Nobody batted an eyelash at it. These things are not nearly as essentialist as Ben Shapiro thinks they are. And he's okay with drawing lines in an essentialist way around these concepts. And it's just idiotic, right? Because again, the biggest point here is it takes away personal freedom and liberty. Because people should have the right and the ability and the decision to wear whatever they want. Just do whatever you want as long as you're not hurting anybody else. It's a very simple, it's a very straightforward thing, right? And it's not even like these are neatly defined concepts that are never changing. It's quite the opposite. It's amorphous, it's nebulous, it's fluid, and it's always changing. Our perceptions to what's masculine, what's feminine, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, these things have been changing forever, right? blonde hair Kyle, blonde hair, I'm sure there was a time when that was viewed as like feminine. Now for a guy to dye his hair some color or bleach it, nobody cares. Nobody bats an eyelash. People are just like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. People get to do whatever they want to do. He's like, it's fine if people want to make local laws. You know what it reminds me of? There was a story from years back of they banned wearing your pants low in some southern counties. Gee, I wonder if that's a shot at the black community. I can't figure it out. This is what he wants. He wants socially enforced gender norms. He wants to make it so that these things are ironclad, never changing. And by the way, isn't that kind of boring too? Like, you're only allowed to wear these colors and these types of clothes, and you're only allowed to wear these colors and these types of clothes. And it's like, who really cares, man? Who really cares? It's really not that serious. And what social good comes out of this? Right? I think from his perspective, he would argue, then men would be men and women would be women and everything would be hunky-dory. But I got news for you, Ben. Gay people have always existed. Trans people have always existed. You might be able to, through force, put them in a box and make them act a certain way, dress a certain way, etc. But that won't change who they really are inside. That won't change. It didn't matter how much you tried to force Caitlyn Jenner to be Bruce. At some point, Caitlyn came out, right? And if you hear, Caitlyn's perhaps a bad example because she's an annoying person who's killed somebody with her car. But when she talks about what she felt like when she put on dresses when she was younger, she was like, oh, I knew right away, like, this is it. This is me. She knew that her whole life. And all like the Macho Man Olympian stuff was overcompensation for the fact that Caitlyn felt like a girl. So you can force people into these boxes, but deep down, people are always going to be whoever they are, whatever they are. And he's just all about maintaining the optics, right? Maintaining the optics and maintaining the order, even if the cost is personal freedom and liberty and happiness. He would gladly sacrifice people's happiness at the altar of social norms and traditionalism. And I just couldn't disagree with that more. I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. All right, guys, that's the show. I love y'all very much. Everybody do me a big favor. Click like, click subscribe. Now we're trying to get to the 2 million sub mark. And you guys know the deal. You guys know the shameless plugs. Leave a comment. Click that bell icon so you get a notification every time a video drops. Listen to the full shows, the audio podcast over on Spotify if you'd like. A bunch more people are starting to do that these days instead of going video for video on YouTube. So yeah, enjoy that. And everybody support the show on Patreon. Support Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. Those links are in the video description box below. As always, I love y'all, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.